Hi everybody, it's me, the Craftsman. Today I'm going to show you how to make a primitive bamboo bow. You are going to need a knife, a saw, a measuring tape, a ball of cord, and a long, thick piece of bamboo. I've used a slightly thin piece of bamboo in this video, but if you have thicker then that's even better. Remember, the bamboo has to be very dry. So over here I'm measuring how long I want my bow. I like my bows up to my shoulder, but some people like them longer or shorter. It also depends on your height. Now I'm sawing the bamboo to length. I'm sawing it just above the nodes so that the bow nocks don't split the whole bamboo down. I'll show you why later on. Now I'm measuring the cut bamboo. I'll work out a point exactly in the middle by dividing the length of the bow by 2, and then from there I'll work out a bow handle. Now saw halfway through the bamboo on each end of where you want the handle. Now take your knife and split the bamboo all the way to that halfway cut that you made earlier on either side. Make sure it's in line with that cut, otherwise you'll end up with a wonky bow. It can be tough to split with that node in the way. It can be very satisfying to split bamboo, especially when it's dry like this one. If you've split it right, half a chunk of bamboo will come off just where you want it. Now just do the same thing on the other side. If you break a shaft like this, be careful of splinters later on. Now that's a good deal of the work done. The rest is just making sure the bow bends equally. Now hack and carve each side till each bow limb bends enough to your needs. You should probably use a sharper knife than the one I have here. Don't take too much wood off at once. Bow making is not a job for the impatient. There, that limb's bending really good. Just needs a bit more work at the top. Finally, one limb finished. Now you just gotta do the same thing all over again. As you can see, this limb is a little thicker and a little more at an angle than the last one. That's no big deal, it just means more work, which you're supposed to avoid. That's why you gotta split with a sharper knife and be very careful with the splitting. Alright, I think it's done. Now both the limbs are bending really good. Now for those notches I was talking about earlier in the video. Like I said, carve these above the node to avoid the string splitting the bow later on. There, you've whittled half the notch. Clear the excess with the saw. The angle the notch makes should be around 60 degrees. Mine is a little off, as you can see. Now repeat on the other side. And on the other limb. Once again, remember not to do the notches under that node. Now roughly measure the string to the length of the bow. Remember, this string should be pretty strong. It's a bowstring after all. Now take the end of that string and loop it, and then tie a knot in that loop. This might not be so easy if you don't know how to tie your laces, by the way. This isn't a knot that professional archers use, but it's simpler and it's much easier to tie. It works just as good or even better. Now check if it fits snugly in your bow nock. If it does, that's all very well, but you can always carve out a little bit. Hopefully you've left more string than you need because you'll need some to tie off on the other end as well. Now very loosely string your bow. See what parts need a bit more work and see what parts are overbending. Now if you're in a survival situation, this is just about it. You've made yourself a primitive bow. But since I'm not in a survival situation, and neither are you, we're going to show you how to decorate this bow, and make it more comfortable. Now tie 2 overhand knots where you would generally put your arrow, or in other words, around the center of the string. These knots have also tightened your bow without you having to undo the bigger knots at the bottom. Now I'm just working off the areas on the limbs that aren't bending properly. Yeah, that's better. So now I'm going to show you this knot that's used in gauze and first aid. It also makes a really good bow handle. So basically make a loop and start wrapping around the handle. Now the end of the string is inserted into the loop and you pull the other end tight, so that the string slips and then the end also goes in. It works the same way as a hangman's knot. Now for some feather decorations. I'm using a crow feather and the feather of a half-breed pigeon. For this you'll need a needle and thread. Thread the needle and then send the needle through the stem of the feather a couple of times. Now either send the needle through the knot in the bowstring or just tie the thread off into the bowstring. You could also tie one end of the thread to the feather and then the other end to the bowstring, although that comes loose very easily. Yeah, make sure the thread doesn't come out the other end. I find it best to thread through the knot. And then there's your bow, all ready except for one little thing, which is the nocking point. Take some thread and start wrapping it around the middle of the bowstring, which is where you would nock your arrow. There, that should be enough. Now I'll take some sandpaper and sand the inside of my bow. This draws to about 2.5 pounds. It should take small game, like birds and mice. Now, so the thread doesn't ever come loose, put a drop of glue on each side. Then put a bit on the knocking point and rub it in to make it stronger. While the glue dries, let me show you my 2 spot-breasted munias. It's the big moment. Will the bow shoot well? Look at that penetration! It goes straight through the cardboard. And now a balloon the size of a small animal. Wait, I'm a smaller animal, aren't I? Yep, so am I. You're way too fat. Shut up, makes me a bigger target. I'm out of here. Uh-oh. So am I. Me too. Me 3.